Question is that the motion be agreed to. Joseph Mooney.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koe te manga o te whare, e huri no e te whare nei, e mihi atu ki a koutou katoa. E tēnei te mihi, nau mai, haere mai te iwi o Whakatōhea. O reira, maoria mai, o whakaakoranga, e whakahuihui ai tātou. E mihi atu ki a koutou katoa. Thank you, Mr Speaker, and salutations to all throughout this House. I greet you and I bid you welcome, whether here in person or watching remotely. Welcome to the people of Whakatōhea, and welcome to you bringing forth the teachings of the matter that brings the people together, and I acknowledge you all here today. To the elders, leaders and members of Whakatōhea who are witnessing this auspicious moment, I extend a very warm welcome and echo the words of the Minister and recognising the very, very long process that it's taken to get here to this reading here today. This settlement, this bill and this process is ultimately about you, your tupuna and your uri. This settlement is testament to the hard work and negotiations between you, between Crown negotiators, between the work that has been done. I acknowledge the Honourable Chris Finlayson, who was the Minister before, and the Honourable Andrew Little, who's brought the process through to today, and to everyone who's been involved. This signifies the beginning of a new relationship between both parties, based on trust, cooperation and respect for the tiriti o Waitangi, the Treaty of Waitangi. The Crown failed to uphold its obligations under the tiriti o Waitangi, the Treaty of Waitangi, and caused physical and spiritual hardship that is deeply felt by Whakatōhea today. No settlement can ever compensate for the mamai that has been endured for many generations, and no redress can fully compensate for the past injustices against Whakatōhea. But the redress in this settlement does provide a foundation for the economic future of Whakatōhea to build upon, and ensures the cultural relationship between Whakatōhea and sites of cultural significance will be recognised for generations to come. I'll just touch, Mr Speaker, a little on the history of Whakatōhea, comprising Ngāi Tamahoa, Ngāti Ira, Ngāti Ngāhere, Ngāti Patamoana, Ngāti Ruatakena and Upo Kōrehe, and an area of interest covering around 200,000 hectares in the Eastern Bay of Plenty. In May 1840, 7 Whakatōhea rangatira signed Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Whakatōhea had by 1864 developed a thriving agriculture economy, constructing a shipping fleet and trading extensively with the growing Auckland settlement. Whakatōhea embraced technology, built infrastructure and developed political organisations to deal with economic and social change. After Crown forces landed at Tauranga in early 1864, Whakatōhea joined other iwi expeditions to support the kingitanga. The iwi expedition was defeated, and Whakatōhea rangatira Te Apotanga, Apanui, Tutaka Hiao and Makaere Pihipihi were killed, creating a considerable leadership vacuum for Whakatōhea at that time. Carl Vogtner of the Church Missionary Society was hanged at Oporiki in March 1865 after a meeting called by visiting Pai Mariri emissaries had demanded his death. Whakatōhea rangatira unsuccessfully argued that he should be spared, but the Crown held Whakatōhea responsible for his death. Crown forces invaded the Whakatōhea rohe in September 1865 following a declaration of martial law. The military killed many Whakatōhea, including non-combatants such as Tio Te Kahika. After the battle at Te Tarata, Crown troops buried the Whakatōhea dead in an unmarked mass grave. Whakatōhea casualties amounted to approximately 10% of the iwi population. As the Minister said before me, it was, I think, one of the worst actions in our history. Crown troops adopted a scorched earth approach, looting, plundering and destroying crops, animals, houses, equipment and taonga. The Whakatōhea economy and its infrastructure were destroyed. The Crown confiscated most of the Whakatōhea productive lands in 1866 and established the Opape Native Reserve on land confiscated from Ngāti Rua, forcing members of other Whakatōhea hapu to relocate there. Most Whakatōhea were forcibly removed from their whenua, awa, maunga and waihi tapu, resulting in the loss of traditional knowledge. In 1866, Mokomoko, a Whakatōhea rangatira, was convicted and executed for Wagner's murder. Mokomoko maintained his innocence to the end, and questions were raised over the prosecution evidence. His body was buried within prison grounds and only returned to his family in 1989. In 1992, the Governor-General granted Mokomoko a free pardon, but the Crown's failure to consult the Mokomoko descendants on the wording of the pardon caused whānau further pain. The Compensation Court sitting in Opotiki in 1867 granted successful claimants individual titles to Whakatōhea land. A special commissioner made out-of-court settlements with some Whakatōhea individuals and groups. These processes eroded Whakatōhea traditional land ownership, social structures, mana and rangatira. The Native Land Court individualised titles to the remaining Whakatōhea lands while imposing survey and court costs. The Crown purchased most of the land, while Whakatōhea owners sold land to cover expenses and provide for their families. The Crown then acquired more of the remaining land through public works takings. Whakatōhea were left virtually landless, with most of the economic base removed, along with traditional sites that were sources of matauranga and well-being. With insufficient arable land and limited work opportunities, Whakatōhea struggled to survive economically and endure the impact of poverty, including substandard housing and poor health, suffering disease outbreaks and having little access to adequate health care. The lack of employment in Opotiki forced Whakatōhea to urban migration in the mid-20th century, and 90% of Whakatōhea lived outside of the traditional rohe by 2020, with many disconnected from their whanaunga, reo, tikanga and whenua. Mr. Speaker, it's clear that the people of Whakatōhea have suffered enormous losses, and what we're seeking to do here today is to restore as best we can with this process. I acknowledge everyone who's helped make that happen. Mr. Speaker, this bill has addressing the losses suffered by Whakatōhea, including financial redress of $85 million plus interest and recognition of historical claims. Whakatōhea will also receive $5 million for the purpose of a reserve land development fund, $2 million for the purpose of marine and harbour development, $5 million for a cultural revitalisation fund, $1 million for a te reo revitalisation fund, and $2 million for a education endowment fund. The settlement will also provide for natural resource arrangements over rivers and catchments in the Whakatōhea area of interest, with the establishment of a non-regulatory Whakatōhea Kaitiaki Forum, which will operate as a permanent joint committee of the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, and the ability to enter into one or more joint management agreements with the Portuguese District Council or Bay of Plenty District Regional Council. There's also conservation redress in there, Mr. Speaker, and there's a aquaculture and fisheries redress with the legislation reserving 5,000 hectares of space in the coastal marine area, in which only Whakatōhea may apply for permits for aquaculture activities. Whakatōhea will receive a right of first refusal over fisheries quota under the Fisheries Act 1996. The settlement provides for the Whakatōhea PSG's appointment as an advisory committee to the Minister for Oceans and Fisheries. The committee will provide input on fisheries management matters in relation to areas of special significance to Whakatōhea. Mr. Speaker, the National Party is supporting this bill through the first reading to Select Committee. We do want to just hear a little bit more about this new aquaculture arrangement, as this is a new process and a new redress and a treaty settlement bill. So we do want to hear a little bit more about how that's going to operate, how it will be managed, etc. And we consider it important to fully explore just how that arrangement will work in practice. But Mr. Speaker, I'd like to just close by once again acknowledging the people who are present here today, acknowledging the significant mamai and pain and suffering that has been experienced for many years and has reverberated down through generations. But this is ultimately about seeking to reset that and provide and recognising that this is ultimately about those who come after us and the children of tomorrow and the opportunities that will be available for them. So I'll thank everyone who's worked hard to get to this point to provide those opportunities for those who come after us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Willie Jackson.